Hello, everybody. I'm Tony Southcott, and we're here to talk about the newest episode of Game of Thrones, episode 4 of the final season, The Last of the Starks. And this is not the high-action, energy-packed episode that the last one was, and it kind of returns to some of the older roots of Game of Thrones. I think that this episode actually worked really well as a follow-up to The Long Night. We're looking at some pretty interesting things happening. We're seeing, let's get it started. The emotional scene where everybody's burning their dead. We see Sansa place the Stark logo on Theon. We see everybody dealing with all that they've lost, which is very substantial. Not as substantial as we initially thought, since it sounds like the armies are about halved. I'm sure less of the Great Call is still there. Sorry, I'm forgetting the name of Dothraki for a second. It took a moment. But we're seeing that kind of come together, and we're seeing how they're going to march to the south. There's a little bit of like finagling back and forth, like, should we rest our men? Yes, you should probably rest your men. But there's also a lot of things that are saying that they need to strike faster. The problem I'm seeing with the strategy that we're having right now, and this is jumping way ahead, also there's going to be spoilers later, is they don't have enough intel on what's happening in the south. Varys relied entirely on knowing everything that was going on. I'm sure he still has a few of his little birds and things like that, but not near what he had before, and there's going to be some severe things that happen there. Basically, they're charging in almost blind in a lot of ways, and there's been a lot of time that has passed. I know a lot of this is like fast traveling, but you can tell that they've actually had time to prepare for these sorts of things in the south. But let's get back to the episode. We're sitting at the post-victory feast, and it's very somber. People are still mourning. People can still smell the pyres that are happening outside. They're still managing to eat. And it isn't until Daenerys gives a title, gives the name, and gives Storm's End to Gendry Baratheon. Which, this is actually a very, very good move on her part. If you understand the rules of power, the way you stay in power is by granting enough to the people that are under you that they're going to protect you for life. And this is something that Tyrion basically says. It's like, you made an ally forever. You took the bastard son of your enemy, and because of his performance, gave him a title, gave him an old stronghold, and made him into somebody. That's a good reward, and that's something that she needs to be doling out more of if she wants to have the North on her side. And you can tell from the response there that the North definitely appreciates that. And she's pandering a little bit. She's toasting to Arya, and it's all good moves on her part there. I don't have any problems with what she was doing. I think that she needs to be doing a little bit more of this to inspire confidence, because we're not seeing a leader in Daenerys right now that would inspire people to be, especially Northerners, to be a queen. And the Northerners are automatically going to be looking a little bit more towards like a male figure. And this shows a lot whenever you've got a very prescient line from Tormund. No, not the pants-shitting one. That was pretty funny. But he has Jon on his side, and he's saying, only a madman would ride a dragon. A madman or a hero. Something along those lines. And he's basically saying, like, I think it's foreshadowing that she's starting to lose it a little bit, and we're going to see more of that in this episode. There's a lot of pain in Dany right now, and she's dealing with the fact that on the other side of the ocean, she was able to inspire thousands. She was the breaker of chains. She was the one of many, many, many titles that don't mean dick in the North and don't mean anything in Westeros, because though people don't know her, they only know that she has dragons. They know that she has these scary armies, or had, like they're not near what they used to be. Like, everything was sacrificed here. And she's basically becoming more isolated. And this episode is a lot about that. It's a lot about these ideas of destiny. And destiny's going to keep getting brought up until the series is over, because we're seeing that our expectations of destiny are completely changing. I don't know if we're going to have the Azor Ahai moment. I don't know if we're going to actually have, like, all of these different things that are alluded to fall into place. We don't even know if we're going to have the whole, like, Cersei's not going to survive type stuff happen. There's so many different things that are going on with Destiny, and it's like Varys said. Varys said that I can't remember if it was Varys or Tyrion, that she went into a fire with stones and came out a queen with dragons. And there's a lot there that would make you think that that's like the instant Destiny and why she bought into her hype. But it's also the idea that all these tyrants have thought the same thing. And they've all bought into their own hype. They've bought into exactly what they've been trying to do and think that they have the ultimate thing. And they're making Dany look more like a tyrant here. And it's basically shaping up to look like they're going to try to assassinate her. I'm skipping over a lot of like the minute details of things, and we're going to get into notes for things that are happening. But I wanted to cover this Destiny point because I think in that last episode, whenever you saw Arya be the one who slayed the Night King, which, by the way, she needs a cool title for that. Like, it's not just that she was badass, it was that she slayed the Night King. Like, color, like, Knight's Bane or something like that. Something cool. Like, I don't know, I don't come up with nicknames for these people. But that's something that I think she deserves. Not that it might matter, because she's not going to be sticking around for it. In one of the more realistic portrayals of a dude in love, Gendry ends up, like, completely opening up to her, saying he loves her, and she says she's not a lady and that she's never going to be. And I was hoping that she was going to claim her humanity back. But I think that he went about it the wrong way. And she still might, but she has unfinished business. She still has names on her list that are far more important than the other names that were there. She's taken a lot off of her list, as far as the people that she's forgiven. But her quest still continues as long as Cersei draws breath. So long as the Hound is still there. I'm sure that there are probably some people on there that you wouldn't expect, like the Executioner. Well, you'd kind of expect it of Ned Stark, which is related to Podrick, which Podrick talked his way into a threesome in this video because, like, Pod the Rod is definitely a thing. And while we're still on random subjects, I'm jumping around too much. I'm sorry about that. Let's get back to this party. There are a few things that I took from this. One, Dany is completely isolated in the north. She doesn't have her allies. Even the people that are her allies are starting to question her. Varys wanted to go there. She tried to get Jon, and she's still manipulating Jon in some ways, and Jon still loves her, but he's not falling into it like she's hoping. Like, they have that moment after the feast where, like, they're making out and he actually starts tearing her robes off and then stops. And it's just not a thing in the north where you sleep with your aunt. And I'm sure she wouldn't care as much because she grew up hearing about, like, Targaryens marrying both their sisters and things like that and having these families. And I think that she can compartmentalize it, but Jon is starting to be completely unable to. And that's painful for her. On top of everything else she's lost, she's still lost Jorah. She's lost her Dothraki. She's just so alone in this right now. And whenever you don't trust your advisors, when you don't trust anything but your gut, you're going to start having these sorts of things pop up where, like, you're losing the management core, and you're going to have just, not disdain in the army, but you're going to have doubt. And at this point in the game, whenever you're trying to rally your troops for one final push, you need more. And the Northerners are marching south. We've got the idea that all of the Starks do poorly when they go south. And then we learn the truth about Aegon Targaryen. Once again, I'm jumping a little bit too much here. There's so much to unpack in this episode because it was so heavy dialogue. There is some action towards the end, but this is all very important stuff. It felt like they were what they would usually do for about 3 episodes back in the old days has been compacted into this one episode as far as the intrigue and the drama they're trying to build up. And I didn't think that this episode was as badly written as some people at Vox and other people thought. Like, I didn't have a problem with this one. This felt a little bit more like authentic Game of Thrones to me. But there's a lot of panic and stuff going behind the scenes. And, I don't know, they are definitely going for the whole Jon is going to be the king, Jon is going to be the king. But if D&D are talking about having all their expectations subverted, it's going to be some weird ending where it's not Jon on the throne. But that's kind of what it's angling towards right now, and that's without Dany. It could be that he ends up having to kill Dany, Dany dies in combat, Dany gets shot down. There's a whole bunch of ways that this could still go, and there's a slight chance that they still end up together on the throne. I think that's getting less and less likely with every passing episode. She's not going to share it. He doesn't want it, but if he takes on that role, people are going to want him for it. Especially with being able to unite the North and the South, especially because Dorne is behind Jon. Like, there's a lot of things that are in Jon's favor right now, and not a lot that's in Daenerys's, other than the fact that she has a dragon, she still has some of the Unsullied, and she has a very, very bitter vendetta that comes out from the end of this episode more than what she already had before. We're also seeing the connections between Jaime and Brienne come to a head. And I was very happy about this. Like, I'm glad we're getting to see so much more of Brienne actually have some happiness. Like, these last couple episodes, she smiled more than she ever did in the entire show before. And of course that's going to get ripped away from her. But I actually really liked this scene where like the tension was there, and she does not know how to handle herself in a sexual situation. Like, she is seeing the man that she, I believe, loves come into her not tent, into her cabin, whatever, and basically doing the whole Nelly thing. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes, all that stuff. And it works. And it works well. And then you get a gentle ribbing from Tyrion saying, like, I'm glad you finally had to climb for it. He's been waiting his whole life to say some of these tall jokes. And it was great. Like, that was good. I really like seeing a little bit more of Tyrion be witty and funny in the past couple episodes, because it feels more like a return to original Tyrion. He was brooding there for a while, and he was so secondary in battles that he wasn't like a huge focus in these episodes. And last week we talked about how it looked like there was going to be a suicide pact between Tyrion and Sansa for a quick second in the crypts. I found out later that was them preparing to go and fight the undead. And that would make sense. It just didn't make it into that episode. You'd think that of all the budgetary things, like a quick fight showing that they were willing to fight in the crypts would make it. But, anyway, back to Tyrion and Jaime. We get to see the return of Bronn. Bronn walks in, he aims the crossbow at both of them. He means serious business, and I knew he wasn't going to just go in and shoot them, but I thought that he had changed enough that he wasn't going to be trying to leverage this into a different type of situation than it was. He's asking for Highgarden. That's what Tyrion is offering him. I think, considering all that he's done for them, it's not the worst idea in the world. I don't think that the Highgarden people are going to like him very much. They're a little more dainty, the Flower Knights and everything, but I think that he has enough power of personality, and he's actually pretty damn intelligent that he'll be able to manage. Like, Bronn is just sick and tired of the Lannisters. He's just done. He's tired of dealing with it. He doesn't think Cersei's going to win, but he also knows that if he were to start doing what he was employed to do, he could honestly influence the war pretty dramatically. Kill both of the Lannisters up north, kill some generals, just put things into disarray, get rid of some officers, and all of a sudden you have the leadership core completely gone from the northern armies. And it's not the worst plan in the world if you're looking to undermine something over the long term. And so he kind of cutthroats his way into a bargain that he might have been able to get with Cersei if he would have negotiated a little bit harder. But I don't know. I don't know how Bronn's going to finish with this. I thought his arc was moving towards being an honorable knight and less the cutthroat. And in this episode, he went a little bit of a step back. And we're seeing a little bit of that later whenever you've got Jaime again leaving to go south. And he says that he can be hateful too. And I'm wondering if this is my theory, which is that he's going to end up being the Queenslayer. He's going to break his vows one more time and then take his own life. Or what will end up happening there. I don't see him going back to fight on Cersei's side. He might, but he's just been through too much. Like, how is this the thing? Like, how is sleeping with Brienne the thing that's going to make him go back and defend his sister? He had an authentic moment with somebody. Cersei had slept with a lot of different people. Jaime had only slept with her. He'd been loyal to her. And now he's branched out. He's found his humanity. He's found a little bit of his redemption. And to just throw that all away, I don't see it happening. I think that he's going back and he's facing the demons of his past and undoing some of the things that he sees as unjust. He's still an honorable knight, and Brienne says that. He's a good man. And Jaime's not entirely convinced, or he's trying to just convince her to not follow him and let him go. I'm not entirely sure what's happening with that. We will know very, very shortly. Emilia Clarke has said that episode 5 is bonkers, so we'll see how that turns out. I'm looking through all of these different notes, and there's so many different things going on here. And we'll get to... Let's talk once again about Jon's heritage, him telling Arya and Sansa. And this is probably the fastest breach secret in all of Westeros. In real movie time, I would bet that it was less than 3 hours that she knew the truth to when she told Tyrion. And telling Tyrion is giving information that's... She's pulling a little finger with that. She is spreading that information to try and make it so that Dany doesn't end up being on the throne. Like, straight up, she doesn't want Dany to be there. She's not convinced of her leadership. She's not convinced she has the North in mind. And it's basically just another usurper from the South in her mind. And I'm starting to understand her position more. Even if I am a fan of Dany, they are definitely pushing hard that she is not managing any of this very well. And This gets talked about in depth and in very, very serious terms in Dragonstone whenever Varys, who finally is back in the game. Varys has just been a side piece for a little while, and now we're seeing the spider walk back in here. And he's not exactly spinning his web, but he is using his influence, his intelligence, to make sure that his will is being known to Tyrion. And he's asking Tyrion to come up with a way to kill Daenerys. And it might have to be Tyrion who does it, either by poisoning or by setting up something. Like, it's not looking good for Daenerys whenever her two main people are looking at her like she's losing her damn mind. And in some ways she is. She's having reflections of the Mad King in just some of these anger responses. And you don't fight angry. Like, there are times where it's the coolest thing in the world where you see somebody overpower and brute force their way in, but you can't do that anymore. If she would have gone in there with her fleets, burned King's Landing to the ground, and dealt with the aftermath afterwards, she would have been so much better off. But she decided she was going to do the campaign the way that her advisors said, and it screwed her over. She had 3 dragons, she had armies, she had fleets, she had the ability to win the war. She goes north, she loses everything. Or not everything. Let's call her 1/3 of the power she had there, and not just because she only has 1 dragon left. That's because of what's happened with her troops, what's left of morale, what's left of, like, they're seasoned troops, but they are exhausted and they've lost so much. And it's not a good situation for her. And we're going to see that situation get even more dire at the end of this episode. But I believe there's a little bit more we want to cover here. Once again with Destiny, the moment where Jon is giving away Ghost, which a lot of people are mad because he didn't go over and pet the dog and he didn't seem to acknowledge Ghost was there. Once again, this could have been because they weren't sure they were going to have the budget for it. This is more symbolic than anything else. This is him literally giving up the direwolf, like giving up the idea of Starks, especially with the episode title being The Last of the Starks, which is actually talking about Bran. But Jon is still considered by so many to be a Stark that it doesn't really matter that much, and he is literally giving up the living embodiment of that house. And he's not seeming very confident. He's not seeming comfortable. He's seeming clouded and just bewildered by some of this stuff. And I don't know if he's like, just because he doesn't want to be king, that doesn't mean he should be king. As Varys says, like, I'm not convinced of that. I know he would be a fair and just king, but I don't necessarily think that he's still good for the job. Like, I think he's more fit than Cersei is. I think he's more fit than a lot of people. But I'm not sold on it right now that he's really the guy. However, he would be very good at rallying the North. Like, I think that he would be good at keeping some of the other houses on his side. I think that he would be much more fair and just a better king, but that's not saying much because that's what they've been pushing on us for a while now. But without Dany in the picture, what does a regime in King's Landing with Jon Snow look like? I don't know who would be his hand. I don't know if Tyrion and Varys would take over. I don't know if I would even want them if they, like, straight up killed Dany, and I don't think he would allow that either. Like, if he found out that Tyrion poisoned him, that might be one of the things that gets Tyrion executed by Jon. Like, I don't know how that's going to sort out, but right now, Dany is doing enough that she's kind of digging her own grave. And I don't know. Like, there's so much that's rushed here, but so much that's actually really good for the series, I think. This episode worked for me in a lot of different ways with once again taking Dany down a notch, making her realize that just because she was great overseas, and even then she wasn't that great because she couldn't get everybody on her side, like, that she's not necessarily made to rule. And that is so apparent here. And this is where we get towards the end, where I talked about how they don't have information on what's happening in the South. Like, you could pretty much say that their motto is, "We do not scout." And this leads to dire consequences. She ends up losing Rhaegal. I think it's Rhaegal. And, like, that was brutal. Because it was sudden. I was settled into the episode. Things were feeling good. And then all of a sudden, you just see those scorpions just rip apart the dragon. This is an improved scorpion. They had the one before that Bronn actually shot a dragon with, but it didn't do enough damage. These new ones are brutal. Like, they're bigger, they have a better range, they rip apart ships. I was actually worried that this was going to be the end of Tyrion at one point because of how fast everything was coming in. And that attack was pretty much perfectly done. I don't know what's left of their fleet, like, if anything survived. I'm surprised that they didn't just straight up storm Dragonstone, but there should be more Unsullied and stuff in Dragonstone that were left behind. And that's a terrifying idea with just Euron actually being so competent right now. I know Euron is kind of a Disney villain in this one, but he was so sinister and dark in the books, and he was basically just a really messed up wizard type character that was also very good at the ships, the iron type stuff. Like he murdered his brother. He murdered a woman that was carrying his child and put her on the front of his ship just because. Like, he thought it would give more power. And also he has, like, some sort of flaming hand, which is kind of cool. But in this particular instance, like, we see him executing with complete impunity his plan to at least take out one of the dragons. Like, he has significantly weakened her at every turn. He took out the Dornish fleet. He took out a good chunk of the old Iron Fleet. And he got his victory today and goes back. And it looks like Cersei's a little bit more down to marry him. She's starting to get a little bit more into it. She's also trying to pass off the baby, another baby, for somebody else's daddy, which Tyrion is going to call out here in a little bit. We see Missandei captured. I thought she died at sea. They had her. And I was like, why would you get the servant? And then I'm like, it's like one of Daenerys' like top people. That's a really good intel source. They probably should have tortured her. They probably should have done a lot more. I'm sure they did off camera. She was not looking very good. And we get the culmination of this episode where you have some Unsullied Daenerys and everybody else walking up on the wall. You've got the mountain up top looking with Cersei, and they're trying to, like, Qyburn walks out of there like it's Lord of the Rings and he's the mouth of Sauron. And he basically lays it out, and you see more of how sinister Qyburn is with his comments on screaming children. And then Tyrion just walks past him and appeals to Cersei's little kindness that she has left, and that was towards her kids. And I think that that's not going to work anymore because all of her kids are dead. And even if she is pregnant, I think that she's a little too far gone to really care what Tyrion has to say about this. And with Tyrion giving that personal thing, you can tell that she is shaken a little bit by it, but not enough to stop what she's doing. And this leads to an oddly heartbreaking death. Like, I've never been the biggest fan of Missandei. I never had a problem with her. She was just not like a major character in my estimation of what would be like important for the throne. Like, she's good. She's a translator. The people of Noth are very interesting. They're actually full-on vegetarian pacifists, and that's what makes the thing that she says before she dies so impactful. Literally, the thing that set her free is fire. The thing that she says at the end is Dracarys, and basically is saying, burn it down. Burn all of it. She doesn't care anymore. This pacifist is saying, like, just be done with it. Get rid of it. Break the wheel like you planned. And then we see the mountain lop her head off. And you're going to see a little bit of competition between Grey Worm and Clegane trying to kill the mountain. Like, the Hound is coming. And that's another thing. The band is back together. Arya's traveling with the Hound. And that's going to be a thing. But in this particular scene, you see Daenerys burning. You see her in fury with what's happened. And I don't think she gives a shit about the people of King's Landing anymore. The problem is she can't burn it down like she wanted because now there's those scorpions or ballistas all over the walls. They're all over the ships. They're all over the walls. They're not impervious to dragons anymore. Like, they can't Harrenhal this. They can't just burn it down. They might be able to if they can penetrate the defenses. They might be able to if they do the right type of attack. But the time where it was easy has passed, and she barely has any of the firepower to be able to do anything with troops. She's got a siege. That's the biggest thing that she can pull, and I'm not sure that's going to be effective with the Golden Company and everything else there. I don't think that she has the firepower as is to do this. Should she be able to go across the sea and get like help from some of her people over there, from Dahario and all that, like see if there's any mercenaries she can bring? Maybe, but not on the timeline that we're looking at. I think that she's going to be making ill-advised moves that are once again going to get her army pared down. And maybe she'll get Cersei. I'm not even sure how much she cares about that Iron Throne right now. Like, that hesitation at the Iron Throne in her vision might be caused because of vengeance. And this vengeance is for what Cersei's done to Missandei, to what she's done to the people of Westeros, what her family's done to her family. And she's going into this from from an emotional position, and that's not what you want in a leader. Like, you want a leader, like, you want somebody charismatic, you want somebody dramatic who's able to rouse their troops and everything. But whenever it comes to combat, fury is not always the right move. Fury is what gets you countered. Fury is what makes your plan obvious. Fury is what makes it so that you aren't going to be able to plan the right type of battle over the long enough period of time to figure out how to win the war. And I feel like Cersei is definitely baiting her into this. She wants that, like, straight up, like, come at me moment. And Cersei better slow it down, otherwise she's going to lose what little she has left, and probably lose her life in the process. And I think at this point that's looking more like what's going to happen. Even if she gets the throne, she's not going to have anything left. There's going to be others that want to take that throne back. She's not going to have the ability to defend it. Like, the Game of Thrones could end with her on the throne, but it could be a very short reign. It's not going to be the hundreds of years that the Targaryens had. And it's strange and brutal to watch what's happening here, because she's going to lose it all. And I'm at the point where I might not want her on the Iron Throne anymore, but it's more, I don't think she's doing the things to earn it. And she was so plotting for so long and took so long to build these armies and set everything up that she's going to cast it away if someone can't convince her otherwise. If she can't be appealed to from her advisors, she's going to lose this war, and Cersei's going to stay on the throne. I don't think that's how this series ends. I think either Arya or Jaime kills her, but it's looking less like Dany's going to be the one taking it. Who gets on the throne after that? Who knows? Maybe Bronn will be on the throne at this point. It's really less clear on how all of this ends after this episode. The Long Night ended the giant, like, ominous threat in the north. The creators have said that there might be some people returning from, they might not be done with the White Walkers and everything. I think that's done. I think they're just saying that on shows because they want people to be less able to predict what's happening. But maybe the Night King had a bigger plan in mind. Maybe there's something going on with Bronn. There's things we don't know. But we only have about 2.5 to 3 hours left of all of Game of Thrones to wrap this up. We've got less than the airing time of Endgame to finish this series. And it's mistakes on mistakes on mistakes that are keeping this from being a happy ending. And I don't know if anybody's really going to be standing that tall by the time this is over. I want to know what you guys think after this episode. I want to know if you think that she still has it in her to lead Westeros, if there's any way of salvaging things with Jon. Genie's completely out of the bottle. 8 people know, 30 people are going to know, 1,000 people are going to know. It's just information at this point, as Varys said. So, please tell me who you think deserves the throne, who you think could still win it at this point. And, yeah, just hit the like button on this, hit the sub button. Let's talk Game of Thrones. Hit me up at TSouthGod on Twitter or at Human Echoes. Instagram works too. I hope you guys have an excellent night. We will be back next week with the 5th episode. No title on that yet. They don't tell it until the night of. And yeah, I will see you guys soon with more talk on Game of Thrones. Check out our movie stuff. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/humanechoes. And have an excellent week.